Introduction, the weightless idea. Nothing in the universe weighs less than an idea. And yet nothing has changed the world so completely. Look around wherever you happen to be sitting. The room, the light, the device in your hand, the very language running behind your eyes as you read this sentence. Every bit of it began as something that existed nowhere in the physical world. It began as a thought inside a skull, a flickering pattern of living cells, weightless and invisible. And then it clawed its way out into reality. Cities are ideas that are built. Laws are ideas we agreed to be bound by. A vaccine is an idea about how the body defends itself, made solid enough to hold in a syringe. Strip away everything human beings have thought, and you are left with a clever ape on a warm rock. Everything else, all of it, we imagined first. For almost the entire history of everything, there were no ideas at all. For 9 billion years there were stars forming and dying, and then a small planet, and warm oceans, and for a very long time, nothing on that planet thought anything whatsoever. Bacteria did not wonder. Trilobites did not doubt. The dinosaurs ruled for more than 150 million years, a span so vast it dwarfs our own into a rounding error. And in all that time, as far as we can tell, not one of them ever once asked what it was doing there. Then, on a geological yesterday, a particular kind of animal on the grasslands of Africa began to do something new. It began to think about things that were not in front of it. The dead, the distant, the not yet, the never was. Matter had, in one small corner of the cosmos, started to form pictures of itself. The universe had grown a part that could wonder about the whole. This is a book about what happened next. It is tempting to tell that story as a parade of geniuses, a long hall of marble statues, one great mind handing a torch to the next. And the great minds are here, all of them. The philosopher who chose to die, rather than stop asking questions, the monk who broke a church in half, the naturalist who dreaded his own theory, the clerk in a patent office who rewrote space and time. But the parade of geniuses isn't quite the real story, and it isn't the most interesting one. Because the deepest changes in human history were not clever new answers to old questions. They were new questions, thoughts that nobody before had been able to have. That is the thread I want to follow. Every age handed the next more than a set of conclusions, it handed down new tools of thought. The proof, the experiment, the number 0, the printed page, the simple, explosive notion that a belief could be tested and found wanting. A tool of thought is a strange kind of inheritance because it cannot be taken back. Once someone works out how to prove a thing beyond doubt, proof belongs to everyone. Forever after, it cannot be uninvented. And each new tool does more than answer the questions we already had. It makes whole new countries of questions suddenly visible. The way a sharper telescope doesn't just clarify the stars you knew but uncovers a sky swarming with ones you never suspected were there. Follow this story far enough, and a pattern rises out of it, and it is a humbling one. Again and again, we have discovered that we are not standing where we thought we stood. We learned that the earth is not the center of the heavens, but an ordinary rock circling an ordinary star. We learned that we are not a separate creation set high above the animals, but a single twig on an immense and ancient family tree, cousins to the fish and the fungus. We learned that we are not even the masters of our own minds, that beneath the tidy reasons we give ourselves run deep currents we did not choose and can barely see. Each of these discoveries landed, in its day, as an insult, a demotion, the loss of something precious. And each one turned out to be an enlargement. Every single time we surrendered our place at the center, we got a bigger universe in the trade. There is a second thread woven through all of this, quieter but just as stubborn, and it runs the opposite way, not a shrinking of our importance but a widening of our care. For most of human history, the circle of those who fully counted was small. My family, my clan, my city, the people who looked and prayed as I did. Slowly, unevenly, and against furious resistance, that circle has widened, to the stranger, to the enslaved, to people of every color and every belief, and in our own moment toward generations not yet born, and toward the animals and the living world itself. The history of human ideas is, among other things, the long story of an expanding we. None of this has been clean, and none of it was ever guaranteed. Ideas are not gentle things. The same century that gave us the theory of human rights gave us industrial slavery. The same science that conquered smallpox built the bomb. Beliefs have comforted the dying and lit the fires beneath the burning. Progress in ideas is not a smooth escalator carrying us upward while we stand still and enjoy the ride. It is an argument, still in progress, that each generation is dropped into the middle of. We do not live at the end of this story. We live inside it, in one more unfinished chapter, holding tools we did not forge and questions we have not answered. What follows is that argument told from the beginning. We'll start with a single hand pressed against the cold wall of a cave, and the first moment one thing was ever made to stand for another. We'll sit in on the astonishing few centuries when, in China and India and Greece and Israel, all at roughly the same time, and without a word passing between them, human beings first dared to ask whether custom might be wrong and truth might be something you could actually prove. We'll watch a printing press slip out of a king's control, watch a man aim a crude telescope at Jupiter and quietly end the Middle Ages. Watch later minds uncover deep time, the gene, the strangeness hiding inside the atom, and the hard limits of certainty itself. And we'll arrive, at last, in our own bewildering moment, wired to every other mind on Earth, learning to edit the code of life, and building machines that press against the very last thing we assumed only we could do. Think. It is a long way from that hand on the cave wall to here. 13 steps by this story. Each one changed, not merely what we knew, but what it had become possible to wonder. Let's take the first step.